This week, it's been years since Mr. Haroon Meer has been on the show. He's back. He's the CEO and researcher at our sponsor, Thinkst, to talk about why hackers should create companies and some of the technical details behind Thinkst's tool, Canary. In the second segment, we welcome Guru. He really is a guru on cloud configuration, auditing, and monitoring. He's the CEO and co-founder even of Cloud Needy to talk about their SaaS product delivering continuous cloud security and compliance assurance to businesses. In the security news, lots of stories this week. Serious vulnerabilities found in an X-ray device. Facebook is facing $5 billion in fines over privacy violations. Pre-installed malware on bootleg streaming devices. Hackers use SIM swapping to steal cryptocurrency. And how a 29-year-old computer scientist created the algorithm that took the first ever picture of a black hole. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. NetSparker, the developers of desktop and cloud-based web application security scanners that enable you to automatically identify vulnerabilities in your web applications and web services. NetSparker scanners employ a unique and dead-accurate vulnerability scanning engine that automatically verifies vulnerabilities with their proof of concept. For more information, visit them on the web at netsparker.com or email at contact@netsparker.com. Organizations' internal networks are overly permissive and can't distinguish trusted from untrusted applications. Attackers abuse this condition to move laterally through networks, bypassing address-based controls to spread malware. Edgewise abstracts security policies away from traditional network controls that rely on IP addresses, ports, and protocols, and instead ties controls directly to applications. Edgewise allows organizations to analyze the network attack surface and segment workloads based on the software and how it's communicating. Edgewise monitors applications and protects data paths using zero-trust segmentation. Visit edgewise.net/Security Weekly to get your free month of visibility. Some restrictions apply. Are you an enterprise dissatisfied with overpriced analytics software that can't keep up with modern data? If so, then GravWell is the solution for you. GravWell is an unstructured data analytics platform for enterprises who demand total data visibility across their network. GravWell lets your security team go beyond the SIM and fuse data sources to correlate and answer questions you didn't know needed to be asked. Go to gravwell.io/Security Weekly for an unlimited data trial and gain uncompromising visibility today.
And welcome to the show! But first, let me introduce you to a man who took a picture of his very own black hole, if you know what I mean. Paul Sidori.
Welcome everyone to Paul's Security Weekly. This is episode 601, recorded on April 25th, 2019, here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left here in studio, Mr. Matt Alderman is with us.
I missed 600, so I had to be here for 601.
You're here for 601. It's okay. It's
Better
good.
late than never.
That's right. That's right. Always nice to have you here in studio, Matt, participating in the shows. Of course, Mr. Larry Pesce is here. Your beard's getting pretty epic, dude.
Yeah, like every couple of weeks I have like, I should just shave this off.
Yeah.
And I don't.
And you resist.
And I resist.
You resist the temptation.
Yeah.
It makes the morning routine so much easier.
It does.
What, not having to shave?
Yes.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
I'm not the Unix neck beard. I still shave underneath and on the cheeks, or it like ends up at my eyeballs.
Right.
But that's only like once a week.
Sure.
So it's
Easy
and the
maintenance.
hair. I mean, we all suffer from the same hair problem,
We
right?
all have the same hair problem.
Yep.
I just can't get it to be manageable.
Yeah, get out of the pool. Done. We're good to go.
Good to go. Joff Thayer's good to go. He's on the lines remotely. Joff, welcome.
Also has the same hair problem.
I do. You know what happens to hair? It just goes south. So, it's fine if it grows here. It grows in other places we're not going to mention. But it is good to be here. I have not been on the show in a couple of weeks, so I've been missing you guys.
It's good to have you. Mr. Lee Neely is here remotely, virtually, as it were. Welcome, Lee.
Good to be back on the show. Couldn't be here for 600. Was busy hanging out in Portugal and Spain, researching the origins of the port so we could have better choices in the studio.
Sweet. I like it.
Nice.
I'm always down for a good port. Scan, port, and port scan. Register for our upcoming webcast with Observe It and Kaseya. That's right. We're doing lots of webcasts. We're on a webcast tear, and they're going to be awesome, I tell you.
We did one today
Mm-hmm.
with ServiceNow. I think we have, 2 or 3 in May, 3 in June, maybe 3 in July. Holy cow.
It's craziness. You can always go to securityweekly.com/webcasts. Register for our upcoming webcast. If you want to check out the archive, you can go to securityweekly.com/on-demand. John Strand will be teaching active defense and cyber deception at Black Hat 2019. You can register by going to blackhat.com/US-19. I think in a previous show I said /.
I think you said
dash.
/ Yeah.
I just need to learn to read what's on the teleprompter. Yeah, embrace the burgundy spirit. With us this evening, he's no stranger to the show, although it's been too long since he's been on. Haroon Meer is the founder of Thinkst, the company behind the love behind Thinkst Canary is just amazing. Haroon's contributed to several books on information security and has published a number of papers on various topics in the field and has very, very nice hair. Haroon, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's probably the thing I'm most proud of.
It's very nice. You've managed to maintain that over the years. I just have to shave my head.
Amongst other things.
Haroon, it is really nice to have you on the show. I don't remember the episode when you were on last, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was ages ago. It's good to be back.
Yes. And so, Haroon, you are a hacker who created a company, and that's where we want to start the conversation. And I think that, earlier you mentioned Doug's song, and I think Doug's success and his background in being a very technical computer scientist and security researcher are things that keep me motivated and moving forward. It's one of the things, I look at you guys and how you've created companies, and you're still nerds at the end of the day. So this first part is kind of like a PSA for those that are nerds and hackers and maybe want to create companies or maybe encourage those people to create companies.
Yeah, so starting off, Doug's elite. Like anytime you get a chance to steal 5 minutes from him, you should. He's worth talking to. But in general, yeah, I think more geeks should be creating companies, or at least not being afraid to throw hats in the ring. For a long time, we kind of had the feeling that we had to be out in the corner and business guys do business. And one of the things you kind of find out is that part of the reason current business practices suck so much is because the people who are doing them kind of do them by rote. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like, all of that stuff is just another system that can be hacked. So, and I think there's a new hope for this sort of stuff. You're starting to see, like, the Capsulate guys are a nice team of hackers making good. The Signal Sciences guys, the Duo guys, and I think more and more you're starting to see hackers, the Senrio guys, basically saying, hey, this is a system, we can hack it, like, we can build nice things. And this business stuff is just another system that we can learn, iterate, and optimize on. And yeah, I'd actively encourage it.
Haroon, what do you think that the biggest fear is? I think at the end of the day, it comes down to fear, really, in creating, being a hacker and being technical and creating a company. So
I'll tell you, I have some thoughts on it, and some of it are not what you think. Like people normally think it's, well, you're afraid of the business world, and for the most part, most of the tech guys that we know don't really lack for confidence that way. Like, you kind of pick a target and go for the target. One of the surprising things that I think is really tough to go from, certainly from doing offense to building a product, is a huge amount of subsuming your own ego. Because when you're a consultant, when you're a pen tester, you almost always, at least on the engagement, the smartest guy in the room. You get to walk in, you get to say clever things, you get to show people shells, and it's really hard to argue with you because here's the shell on your server, right. Here's your CEO's email. And when you go from that and then build a product, and now when you walk into that boardroom, you've got junior MBAs and someone who's 10 days out of college saying, actually, I think you made a mistake by making this button blue. This button really should be red. And you want his business. And so I think there's a huge leap that has to go from always being the smartest because you broke stuff to I made stuff, please accept my stuff. And I think you guys will know some of it, right? Like or lots of it. When you put yourselves out there with a podcast or with a blog post, there's a moment of vulnerability because you basically create something, you create this child and you put it out into the world. And in part, I think that's good for more security people to do. I think it'll make us better security people also, because I think part of the problem security has had for a long time is a lack of empathy. And I think you can fake that empathy, like, hey, devs are people too, you should be cool with devs. But nothing teaches you empathy like actually having to make dev trade-offs, actually having to figure, do I spend my time on this or do I do this a certain way? Do I actually use langsec when I'm using a protocol, or am I just going to wing it with badly crafted HTTP and stuff into JSON objects? So yeah, I think all of that stuff is useful. I think building stuff makes us better hackers, and in truth, I think that hacking makes us better builders.
Haroon, are some of the fears, do you also believe, tied to, as technologists, we study a lot of different technology, we've seen a lot of technology trends, and we feel like someone's already done it before, or someone's already doing it today, so why bother throwing my hat in the ring?
Yeah, so I think that stuff's not limited to us, right? Like they talk about, they joke about economists, that an economist walks past $100 on the floor and doesn't pick it up because he says to himself, rationally, if there was $100 on the floor, someone would have picked it up. And I think there's a great deal of that. And I think for that, we are particularly bad because we do that in two ways. One is, like, visit Hacker News. And for almost any company that went on to be $1 billion company, you'll be able to find a post on Hacker News from some guy saying, what is this? I could build this with 10 lines of bash and the weekend. Like whether it's Twitter or whether it's Dropbox. And in InfoSec in particular, we see a lot of this. Like, oh, you're building your own SIEM? Like, no, I could totally do this with an elk stack in 5 minutes. And actually, part of the problem is there's a huge wealth of problems waiting, like CISOs waiting to throw money at someone who can make a problem go away. And instead, lots of the time in security, we look at things and go, I could build that, and maybe that becomes not worth paying for. I think that's changing. Like I think companies like ours are able to survive because that's changing. Like I think if that were the prevailing wisdom, you can make your own Duo. You can make your own two-factor auth pretty easily. You can make your own canaries. You can make your own WAF on Nginx and a whole bunch of stuff. But I think you're starting to see more aware security folks now who look at products and say, hey, I could totally use that as a piece in my pipeline. And I could build it, but I'd rather they build it and I focus on other things. And I think that's that's a sign of us maturing in some ways.
Yeah. Well, to your point, there's no better way to learn empathy, I believe, than to do a startup and watch it fail. Literally, because I did. The first one, to your point, Haroon, right? I knew what needed to be built. I knew the requirements. We built a great platform. We failed on sales and marketing. I wasn't the CEO of my own startup. And we watched it just kind of literally vanish. And you want to learn empathy. You want to learn business and what it means to become a business person and understand customer requirements and the value of sales and marketing. I mean, there's no better way to learn that ever. And look, I learned from that and continue to drive, work for a various number of startups and had some great success with some of those. But as a technologist at the time, because I've lost most of my technical brain now, I knew, if you have that vision, you have that, that entrepreneur spirit. Do it. Now, and when you do your first one, you might hire somebody who has a little more business sense to help you through that transition. You'll learn through that experience whether it fails or succeeds, and it makes you better for the next one. And that's, to me, that was how I learned empathy very, very quickly.
Yeah, so empathy wise, it's super useful. But one of the big reasons why I think more of us should build companies is, look, the security ecosystem in many ways is broken for lots of things. And one of the reasons I think it's broken is because we've got vendors, we've got some vendors who behave badly, and largely the market can't tell the difference. And it's a pretty classic market for lemons problem, right? Which is eventually the smartest of us decide to leave the industry because staying in the industry, people can't tell the difference between a good product and bad. And we can do that. And in the classic market for lemons, what that results in is market failure. Or what you do is more good people get in there and throw their hat in the ring. And hopefully we can start having good products bubble up. And again, I'm increasingly hopeful. You starting to see good products come through. Like you mentioned our love page earlier, and it's one of the things that we're super proud of because all of that is unsolicited. We're not going out telling people, please tweet about us. People like our stuff enough to go out on Twitter and say this rocks. And on the one hand, we think it's a little bit sad that that's so uncommon because why do something if you can't generate love? But on the other, we really pleased with it. Like it keeps us going.
It was one of the big drivers for Doug Song over at
Duo.
Yeah, Duo, right? I mean, it was all about that connection with the customer. Customers loved the product. They raved about it. And he instilled that kind of that community around what Duo was doing. Look, he had a fantastic exit with Duo to Cisco.
Right. That's an understatement.
Yeah, I mean, but he believed in that, and he really wanted to make that customer experience. Like customers just loved what he was doing, and that's great because that means people are using it, they're getting value out of it, and they want to continue to tell other people about it.
Well, and I think there's two struggles there, Matt. Where I was going was one of the things that we've always said about the security industry is that the vendors that have the best technology, the coolest tech, aren't always the ones that end up being a category king in any given subcategory.
They're not always
in
the one that win. Yeah.
It's usually the ones that have the better sales and marketing, or in this case, customer service, which is great. But usually it's the ones that have better sales and marketing and have good technology. But there's usually others in the category that have friggin' fantastic technology that makes us nerds jump up and down for joy. But unfortunately, they don't win. So Haroon, is it more about not just throwing your hat in the ring, but also having some way to teach everyone what good sales and marketing really means?
Yeah, so I think there's two things there, and again, lots of the stuff I'm talking about with a handful of data points, so your mileage will vary. But on the one hand, I think that stuff is changing. I think the whole way that enterprise buying works is changing, and it used to be that if you wanted to sell to the enterprise, you needed a version of strippers and steaks and sales guys who'd go in and spend a week and wine and dine the customer and then walk away with a 7-digit contract.
That was really a thing. You're right. Absolutely.
It was. Absolutely. Yeah. And I know who some of those guys still are.
It totally was. And to some extent, that stuff still exists. Like the company just comes out of the gate. The technology still has warts, but it blankets every airport that you land in, and it's in every in-flight magazine. And maybe the technology gets better, but right now it doesn't deserve that sort of carpet bombing advertisement. And that stuff still kind of works. But what you're also seeing is before IT wakes up and approves it, there's 10 different Slacks running in your company because Slack was so useful that 10 people swiped a credit card and put it in. And before it's been approved at a higher level, small parts of your org are already running Duo. And in our case, we've got orgs where like 3 different parts of the org are running Canary. And you start to see that stuff where there's a combination of things. One is the products are built differently, so they get that bottom-up acceptance. And the other is you're starting to see more empowered engineers. So the purchase doesn't just happen with the CIO anymore. You have engineers who have TOEFL limits or something like that, and they're able to bring this technology in, test the technology, make sure that it works for them, and then pull it up into the org. And I think that's pretty win-win, because it avoids one of the big moats that the big companies used to have before. And one of the things about moats like that is they make people lazy. So historically, if you spoke to VCs or if you spoke to business folks, they tell you like, you don't get it, kid. Like, you don't need to be the best product. You just need to have the most feet on the ground. And like, we've got a sales team of one. And at this point, we've got a ton of customers. Like, we've got customers just on all 7 continents, like including Antarctica. And the only reason that works is if our customers are good advocates for us. And the only way customers are good advocates for us is if we continually try hard and don't suck. And so you start to see the hope for positive feedback loop, where instead of heading towards market failure, you're now heading towards a loop where we incentivized to work harder. Customers are incentivized to keep us alive because they want more of the stuff. And that's kind of nirvana. That's kind of where you want to go to.
Yeah, right. I mean, Haroon, you're making it sound easy, right? But it's not, because having great technology is hard. Having great customer service is hard. And the other thing you talked about was having a good product market fit and go-to-market strategy, right? I mean, if you could do those things well, you're going to have a successful company.
Totally with you. So again, none of it is easy, and none of it like everyone's got sucky days or sucky weeks. But I think it's now more possible than it used to be. So we first like our team is still pretty small. Like there's just about 16 of us in the company, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of customers at this point. But if you told me 10 years ago that a company with 10 people would have customers on all 7 continents and more than 1,000 servers, like that stuff was dodgy. But now we're starting to accept that, right? You're starting to accept Instagram with 14 people that's generating $1 billion worth of value, and WhatsApp with 20 engineers actually handling the market. And it's a good time to be a hacker. Yeah. Like all of that stuff is on the table. Like how we manage our servers, cool. 5 guys can manage 10,000 boxes. Yay automation. How you handle your go-to-market, we can hack that. It's a good time to throw your hat in.
Agreed.
Yeah, and one of the areas where your point comes across more than anything is the DevOps movement, right? Engineers are making decisions about the technology they're embedding into their DevOps process, and it's not going to a higher level in most cases. They've got the ability to make those decisions, and so the ability to now get technology into the hands of engineers and build that bottom up. DevOps is a perfect motion.
You guys are, Haroon and Matt are very yin and yang, right? Because what Matt's talking about, right, is the engineer has some level of budget. Your product has to be at a low enough cost so that they can acquire it. And what Haroon just said was, we can build companies now with less people, which means less overhead, which means that this is a happy marriage.
Yeah, it's a good way to go. And in fact, recently I said something like I'll get a little bit of hate for. And I was saying that I actually think that the traditional VC model actually hurts the security ecosystem a little bit, because one of the reasons bad companies, there's multiple reasons for it, but one of the reasons bad companies get to exist as long as they do in the ecosystem is because the VC model, which works really well for consumer startups, kind of hits a snag when they're doing security startups. So if you throw your money behind a Friendster. So a VC invests in Friendster, Friendster gets built up, and either Friendster sinks or it swims. And if Friendster manages to get the customers, then people sign up for it and they get subsequent rounds of funding. In the security space, customers find it so hard to distinguish between good products and bad products that as a proxy, they go for, are you a legit product? So
Right.
people will buy a product because there's 10 salesmen and because they saw it at the airport and because it was an in-flight magazine. I mean, how can you be junk? You've got a slogan everywhere as you land at SFO. Like this must be a legit thing. And it's a little self-fulfilling because a VC looks at a product and says, okay, I think people need this machine learning malware stopper. Let me invest 10 squillion in it. And now the guy's got 10 squillion, so he buys those ads and buys a sales team. And he gets his first sales because he's got those things. And now the VC has to reinvest for round 2. And he bases his decision on, well, do you have customers? And that thing allows a bad company to last 2 or 3 cycles longer than they should. And again, that's not the VC's problem. We've still got a fundamental problem in InfoSec where there's not enough people who can distinguish between good products and bad, or products that we actually need versus products that have some blinking lights. But certainly the influx of capital into it doesn't help. And right now, everyone knows that the cybers are hot. And so you've got stupid money entering it. Like everyone who's got a hint of a VC fund is looking for someone who wants to build a cybersecurity company. And there, I'd give caution to all my hacker friends that say, like, if you're building a company, don't go that route too early. Like build your product, get product market fit. You don't need a lot of capital. There's some businesses where you do, like you can't build a Cloudflare unless someone's put a basquillion into you, I guess. But for example, we built, and our first devices, we literally shipped hardware, right? And even that, like, we were able to scale costs as customers paid for it. So we were buying servers as customers needed it, and we were building hardware as customers needed it. And the market will tolerate that stuff a lot better these days than it used to. And it gives you a good, sustainable way to build a business.
Yeah, Haroon, you bring up a really good point on the investor side, because there are some really good cybersecurity venture capital funds out there that understand the market, the product market fit, where your technology fits in, and will be there for the long haul, where some of the other VCs may not. They don't understand the nuances of security. They're looking to invest to that concept of dumb money, right? There's a stage in a startup's life when you go get the additional money because you need that next scale. But I've always been very cautious about who's that initial investor, and do they understand you to make you successful and succeed in the security market. And there are a number of really good cybersecurity VCs that understand that and are much better positioned if you're going to become a founder.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And at this point, there's enough other ex-hackers in the wind that I say ex-hackers, or even current hacker founders in the wind, that'll help out. Like one of the things that traditionally VCs used to bring is a wealth of experience, right? You're out there building your company for the first time, and you don't know, like, how does this actually work? Do I need something before I can sell to a big Fortune 100? And nowadays, with Twitter and with social media, you can pretty easily reach out and you'll get a Doug Song, a John Oberheide, Zane Lackey, who'll happily give you 5 minutes to go, hey, this is how it looked when we did it. Why don't you try X? And so again, I think one of those things that were traditionally gate kept, like you needed access to a VC for it. We're starting to have community resources now that can pull you through those phases.
I want to transition into technology. A lot of our audience members do know what Canary is and how it works, and we've talked a lot about you need good technology. Haroon, what's your technology all about, and how'd you come to find it and build it?
Right. So one of the things that we say about our technology, and we say it kind of flippantly, is that we kind of the dumbest product you can get that actually works. And in part we say it, and we're kind of proud of it, because We don't do fancy machine learning. We don't do any of that stuff, although we reasonably position for it.
I see. I was excited. I thought you were going to say you had a machine learning malware stopper. That's going to be like my next product. I'm going to call it machine learning malware stopper.
The working title. No. So what we go for instead, like we spend an incredible amount of engineering time, and I'm talking about like completely engineer years on making our product as simple as possible. And so we've got a crazy amount of effort behind making sure that there's almost no friction. So a step back, like what Canary fundamentally is honeypots that you can deploy in minutes. And I'll say two things on this. The one is, traditionally, honeypots have kind of picked up a bad rep. And I know you guys with offensive countermeasures and all of that are fans. But there was a time, like honeypots went through the cycle, right? In the early 2000s, Know Your Enemy series were great, and Lance Spitzner and Fyodor from Nmap and a whole bunch of really smart people did the HoneyNet project. And I think we took a wrong turn at some point, because honeypots got classified as a research project and a way to study your opponent. And so people started going like, if you have time, then use honeypots to study what attackers are doing. And of course, the truth is, we know what attackers are doing these days. Like, you can't open a newspaper without seeing what attackers are doing. Like studying your attacker like that is not what most industries need to do. And where we see the value of honeypots largely, like our company is aimed at reliable breach detection. So we pitch Canary as the cheapest, quickest way to detect badness on your network. And our logic is we've spent a lot of time shaving the product. So literally, even on super complex networks, and for the tech geeks amongst us, like I can talk about some of the stuff we do, but essentially, even if you are super, super unsophisticated user, Canary is useful 4 minutes after you deploy it on a network. So you get a box, you drop it, within 4 minutes, it's there. And then one of the fortuitous things, and one of the reasons why I think hackers should build companies, is sometimes you get lucky with some things. And for example, one of the things that we got super lucky with is we built our first canaries, and we go through a lot of effort. So if you take a canary and say, I want you to be an IBM mainframe, then it runs services that look like a mainframe, and its TCP/IP stack fingerprint is a mainframe. And if you term to it, you get a mainframe login. And if you make it a Cisco, its stack fingerprint is Cisco, and its services are Cisco. And in truth, that's not super necessary. When Snowden was bouncing from box to box, he was just looking for open shares. Like, if the share was a dodgy Samba share, he didn't go, oh, let me not take the PDFs from this thing.
Right.
And this happens in enterprises too. And as attackers, we kind of often think of technologies in terms of, can it be defeated in the lab? Like way back during the early HoneyNet project, there was a product tool called Sebek. This dates me a little bit, but Sebek was a BSD kernel logger. So you rootkit yourself, and it logs all of the syscalls so that you put it on a host, and when that host gets owned, while the attacker is doing his stuff, Sebek is pushing off all his commands because of kernel logging. And if I remember right, Sebek demoed at a CanSec West, and the next CanSec West, someone else did a talk on how to detect Sebek with kernel timing. And that's totally cool. It's totally awesome that it can be done. But again, 99%, 100% of your attackers, when they land on your box, are not timing syscalls to see if Sebek is running on it. And if you had Sebek running on it, you would have caught that attacker. And if the NSA were running it, they would have caught Snowden. And so we've got to get out of this thing where we make perfect the enemy of good enough. And so going back to Canary, we do all this stuff, and we put a lot of work into making it believable, even if it's not really necessary. And then we get a little bit lucky, because one of the things that we really lucked out on, we used to teach a class at Black Hat for many, many years as SensePost for how to break into networks.
I remember that, yeah.
And one of the things we used to spend, we used to spend a disproportionate amount of time teaching people how to footprint and fingerprint organizations. And when we used to give it as a 5-day class, 2.5 days we'd spend teaching people how to footprint an organization, right? It's why Multigo came out of Ruloff from SensePost, because footprinting is what we do. And one of the things we used to teach people was, if you on an internal network and you see a whole bunch of Windows servers, and then you see one Solaris server, go for the Solaris server. Because chances are this company has figured out, and they locked down their Windows and they've got Windows admins, but they had to get a Sunbox to run their disk station or to run their SAN storage.
Or it came from a vendor that was providing one specific thing, and
exactly.
vendor put software on it and was like, you can never upgrade it because our software will break, and you can just write us our check and then we go away.
Exactly right. So now that box is R hostable and R loginable. And when you get on, you actually find that the admins use the same password, or there's a Samba password. But there's an interesting thing here, and we totally got lucky with this. It means that if you take a Canary and put in the time to make it really blend into your environment, then you're doing something clever and attackers will hit it. But if you take it and drop it in really stupidly so that it sticks out, turns out attackers are going to hit it.
I like that you're not afraid to call it a honeypot, because a lot of people in this space, they don't like the term honeypot because of the reasons you described. But you're like, no, it's a honeypot, and it's effective because of the stories you just told. Yeah.
No, it's totally so. Our thing is, honeypots are a good idea that got a bad rap, and for breach detection, like I've had a few discussions with really smart people who default to, well, you shouldn't do honeypots till you've done everything else in the org. Like, first you do this, and first you do asset management, and first you do a SIEM. And I'm like, listen, I would buy that if we were going to add more work for you. But literally, you give us $10,000 and literally 4 minutes of your time, and you've got a reliable indication when someone owns your DMZ, or when someone's on your server network, or when someone's on your CFO's network. And this is our whole pitch, right? Which is, go do your SIEM project, which is going to take you 3 years, and your DLP project, which never ends. And while you're doing all those things, do this for 10K. And even if you give it no thought at all, take them in their default state and drop them down, I'm willing to bet you're going to get value from it. Because within 3 months, you're going to get a ping at 3 a.m. when you find out that actually your WAN router just accessed the files on your Canary SMB share. And at that point, everything changes, right? Because now you've got something to go back to the org and say, listen, we thought we needed a budget of X, but look at what's happening at 3 a.m. We need a budget of NX. Or something that says, we thought that SIEM was priority 1, but actually we're leaking in our DMZ. Someone needs to go fix this thing first. So
Haroon, I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. In the SMB Samba share example, right? Well, what prevents a legitimate user from getting curious, browsing the network, and tripping the honeypot, causing, in that sense, false positives? Totally. I mean, false positive might be the wrong word, but a false positive.
Totally a good question, and totally something that does happen. And there's two things, right? There's one is you can spend more time making it more hidden. So put an SMB share, put a Canary up on the CFO's network, and map a drive from the CFO's machine to the Canary, so that now when someone owns your CFO and checks out his X drive, they see it going to /backup and they touch it. And at that point, there's no doubt there's badness. And on the other hand, there's somebody went into AD and found 2019 projections, and then went into 2019 salaries, and then went into exec salaries and copied exec salaries.xls. It's not a false positive. Like, you have to go have a discussion with Bob.
Right.
Like, so there's that. But there's also the thing, and this goes a little bit more to something I was talking about earlier, which is a bit of a philosophical thing. I think in security, because we've had products that were just crap, in terms of giving us 10,000 alerts, we sometimes go too far in the other direction. So I'll start off by saying we've got customers with more than 100 canaries on their networks that in a year get 5 alerts. And we know this because they speak to us, and when they renew and they say, listen, last year we had 5 alerts, 3 of them were staff poking around, and 2 of them were actual unofficial pen tests, meaning they got owned by someone. So already the noise level is not 10 alerts per day. It's maybe 10 alerts per year, but you're looking at less than that. But my philosophical point is, I don't think that people should treat false positives, if the volumes are that low, as that big a problem. Like, you got somebody access the share at noon, you check, and it's Vicky, the sysadmin, and Vicky says, oh yeah, I saw this box and I mapped to it and checked it. And you go, cool, Vicky, let's move on. Like, that's perfectly fine. And again, canaries are made to be silent, so it's not everybody every day. And if you're getting hit, like your staff have another problem, like you need to give them actual work so they're not browsing around random servers in AD. But for the most part, that's my take on it, is we shouldn't be that anti false positive. So one of the other things pre-Canary that I've used in a talk for many moons, I've said to people, listen, every pen test that we did as SensePost, where we ended up as domain admin, and that's most of them, like, you'd go back with the report weeks later, and people don't know that you added user Bob Smith as a domain administrator.
Yep.
And that's a ridiculous.
Of course, that's completely changed today, right, Larry? Jav?
No.
No. Yes.
We only add our own accounts as domain admin now, just as the as the the flop your man meat out on the table, and.
Oh, I gotta say, I do have a habit of literally dropping one of my accounts into the domain admins group just to see how quickly they would react, if at all. And for the last few times, and this may be a testimony to our customers, I've got a phone call within 20 minutes.
That's cool.
That is exactly 20 minutes too long. Because it's over by then. It's all over by then, man.
Well, it's true, but they did notice.
It's like, it's trivially solvable, and it should be solved, right? And if you tell people, look, why don't you just add a one-line script that mails you when a new user is added to domain admins? And one of the gut reactions you'll get back is, well, what happens when it's a legit user? And the answer is, when it's a legit user, you look at the mail and delete it. Like,
that's right. Or you go hunt down the junior sysadmin that did it, and you delete him.
Yeah.
Or you go, hey, look, the script still works.
Yeah. And along those lines, Larry, I want to go back to something Haroon said, and that was, with the Canary product, you may get 5 alerts a year, right? And typically when I deploy something, being the kind of suspicious, skeptical security person, I'm like, is that really working? But if it's sending me alerts, a couple a day, 100 a day, 100 a week, I'm like, like it's working. It's doing stuff. Now, all those 100 for that week are false positives, and I've spent the time to verify that each and every single one of them are false positives.
At least for the first week.
I kind of feel good when I go home for the weekend that, like, I looked at stuff, it was generating alerts, they're all false positives.
And then the second week, you ignore all those messages.
Yes,
and then when the real things happen,
then I create a filter to filter out all the false positives. But I feel good about it, and I think, Haroon, you made me realize that's not the only way to feel good about something that's protecting your network.
Yeah, it's a super interesting thing. So that's actually something we bumped into, and it's interesting because we bump into it mainly when we talk to business guys, and business guys will say, well, hold on, like, you're putting this product on the customer's network, and your aim is to be as quiet as possible. Like, they're not going to renew you in year 2 because you didn't show any value,
right?
And like, genuinely, legitimately, at this point, with hundreds of customers, we've had one customer spring that line on us, and the customer was actually trying to pay less in year 2, and essentially it's make of it what you will. It's a Swiss bank that came back to us and said, hey, listen, your product was really silent last year, and we're not sure if we should renew. And we went like, look, silence is kind of what we go for. Can we check this out? And we check it out, and we're like, hey, listen, in May, it threw an alarm, and they're like, yeah, that was when we had our pen testers, and you caught our pen testers. But other than that, it was silent. And we're like, that's what we say on the tin. Like that's us working like we should. So we silent the rest of the year, and when your pen testers were in, they were caught. And they were fully fine. Like they were just their purchasing department angling for because that's what they do.
Sure, but that's their job to do that in the purchasing department, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But by and large, most of our customers actually appreciate the fact, and it's worth mentioning that it's something else that's I think fairly unique about what we've done with Canary. Like we've got a dashboard and all of that, but we don't care if you never go to it. Like our aim is on day one, you go in, put in your email address or put in your phone number to get a text or aim it at your SIM or something like that. But we don't want to be your one pane of glass, and we don't want to be the center of your universe. Like our pitch is, we cheap and we quick. Drop us in today and forget about us. And never look at us again until we beep. And when we beep, you should probably cancel your plans, because chances are it's something to look at. And so far, that's like, again, you never know till you try. But it's kind of struck a chord with customers. So for the most part, customers like it, and then customers tell other customers, and that kind of works.
Now,
for us.
Larry and Joff, do you worry that you'll get tripped up or caught by some type of honeypot or deception technology?
No,
typically not. And I was just going to suggest, though, you need to add a feature. And call it the add value feature. So when the customer calls in and says, hey, we're having a problem, it's not making any noise, you can just dial up a button. It's like, look again.
Push a button and it hits it. Yeah. In terms of you guys not worrying about hitting one, so we've got empirical evidence now, right? Like we around in enough places, and so we've caught enough pen testers, and part of the stuff that you hit becomes part of the question of how you do stuff, and you'll see two things happen. The one is, if you know that a network is canaried, for example. So some people, you go out and you check our /love page, and you see a customer saying, yes, we're now running Canary, and so now you on that customer, and you find a AWS API token. Do you use it?
Well, you haven't described for us in the audience what the tokens are, which goes back to our previous conversation of like, how do I get this in the cloud and all my containers and in my applications? And really, essentially, the answer came down to, Haroon, is that tokens are the way to do that.
Yeah. So we'll hit tokens, but that concept is consistent, right? Like if you know this company is running Canary, and now you see an open share called network diagrams, to show your age again and go back to speed, what do you do, hotshot? Like do you not grab it? Like when we pen testing and there's a chance to grab network diagrams, you take them, but now you're second guessing. That's entirely dodgy looking. And anyone who's pen tested will tell you a squillion times where they found creds in stupid places.
Yep.
Like you box, and it's a strange box, and they tried an X server, and oh look, the X server has passwords for a box on the domain in a text file.
You know, it's funny though. A lot of times when I was pen testing, I would find them tell the customer, "Hey, like I found these credentials," and they're like, those are old credentials. They're nowhere it will work in our environment." And I'm like, "Can I try?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead and try." And then you own their whole environment. I mean, you guys have all done that as well, right?
And they work. And then while you're trying, they're like, "Quick,
change the password. Change it."
It's how ownage happens, right? Like if you guys are pen testing with any sort of frequency, and this is one of those information asymmetry problems, because companies think that they defend themselves with 0-day protection and fileless malware detection. But actually, they're getting owned because of creds.txt, which still has valid creds to a server, which is still trusted on the domain, which then allows Mimikatz to run. And even if we're getting a handle and getting better at this part of the problem, we're miles from that part of the problem, which is why attacking networks is not that much harder now than it was in the early 2000s. Like you're on a network, and it's hours or days to domain admin if you even need it. And yeah, it's
So,
that stuff
Haroon,
that
I have a question, and it's a very specific question, right? Because so I've been doing a lot of programming lately. A lot of it interfaces with APIs, and if you've ever interfaced with an API, you have to authenticate, right? Usually, that means unless you've got some kind of credential vault, that you're ending up with some kind of JSON file, which essentially has, I mean, it's not a username and password, right? It's a client ID and secret and a token inside there. If that's a Canary token, how do you know when an attacker's done something with it or accessed it?
Yeah. So let's transition quickly to Canary tokens, and I'll explain that one because the one that we do for AWS is particularly cute. It's a stolen idea from the folks at Atlassian, but it's a cool idea. So if Canaries, with Canaries, our pitch is you take this thing and you make it an operating system. And again, the pitch is 4 minutes, and you've got a Windows box, a OS 10 box. If you've got a SCADA network, you make it a Siemens PLC, and it'll talk Modbus. So the logic is 4 minutes, you drop it, you forget about it, and it'll tell you somebody just tried to talk valid Modbus to me and they shouldn't have. And so you put that on the one corner. And then what we did is we created Canary tokens, which for years and years, we've been telling people, everyone's been telling people, use honey tokens. Like if you've got a database of credit card information, put in a credit card for Bob Zander 111. And if you ever see Bob Zander 111 go on the wire, something's wrong. You've been owned. And the logic sounds good, except in practice, you can't. Like you need to find a way to hook in to your database stream so you can see Bob Zander passing on the wire. Or you need, and so it falls into that thing where we gave people advice that actually wasn't super actionable. And with Canary tokens, what we did is we said, let's make a way to make all of that stuff trivially doable. And so at its simplest, with Canary tokens, you come to us. So there's 3 things worth mentioning here. We have our paid Canary tokens. Everyone who's a Canary customer gets their own Canary token server, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But we also, if somebody goes to canarytokens.org, what you'll see is we host a Canary token server for people. And like that thing's been used, it's currently used by something like over 100,000 people. And so essentially what you do there is you go to canarytokens.org and you say, here's my email address, paul@paul.com. And you put in a reminder that says, this is the token that I'm leaving on my mom's desktop. And then you create a fake Word doc. And so the token server gives you this Word doc and you put it on your mom's machine. And the joy of Canary tokens is that the alert is self-identifying. So if you take that and put it on your mom's machine, you're now in a position to put 1,000 of them, right? Mom's Dropbox, mom's box account, mom's laptop, mom's desktop, and forget about it. And in 2 years, when you get a message telling you somebody accessed the Word doc on mom's desktop or on mom's Dropbox, now you go and look for it. And the first 2 versions of that are dead simple, right? We'll give you a URL string. And if someone visits that URL string, we'll tell you the reminder that you wanted to get. So again, mom's desktop. And the second one is we'll give you a DNS name. And if anyone resolves that DNS name, we'll tell you someone just resolved it. And both of those are 2 minutes worth of development time. But with those 2 primitives, you can start making really interesting tokens. So now you can make a Word doc that alerts you when it's opened, or a PDF that alerts you when it's open. or you can create a little bit of JavaScript code that tells you when your website is running on someone else's infrastructure. So we've got a big social media company or communication company, and they had really top class pen testers in, and initially they caught those guys doing a red team exercise on day one because those guys hit a canary, and on the second engagement a quarter later, the team said, well, how do we beat day one? And actually they caught them the week before the engagement started, because this company runs Canary tokens on all of their public websites. And effectively, those guys cloned the website for phishing campaign. And so they got their ping saying, hey, this website is now running at securitycompany.net. And so they managed to beat that. And one of the tokens, the one you mentioned that's worth explaining, is tokens can be as simple as we give you a unique URL, and when someone goes to it, we tell you someone went to it. And even there, right, if you think about it for a second, something that'll be up you guys' alley, or at least that's just going to sound dirty. Something
Perfect.
Something that you guys would be keen on is on my home network, all of my Linksys routers, I say, because we are officially one with the Queen, but you guys would say routers. The Linksys logo on all of my routers is actually a served Canary token. So it's a token where essentially we upload an image to the Canary token server, and the token server says, okay, I'll serve this image for you. And whenever I serve it, I'll tell you it's Haroon's Wi-Fi extender, or it's Haroon's primary Linksys. And so now I just put those on all of my devices at home. And you guys can imagine, take the device, take the thing, unsquash it, put it in. And what it now means is that I get a ping that tells me someone just logged on to your Wi-Fi extender, or someone's just logged on to your router. And again, with tokens, what you're looking at are tiny tripwires. Where canaries were entire operating systems, tokens become tiny tripwires that allow you to tripwire stuff. And I'll give two more examples just because it's a good example of simple but effective. The one, if you go back to talk about that simple URL, right? And you would think, I'm smarter than that. Like, I'm a lead hack, so I'm not going to get caught by a URL. But here's the thing: most orgs running Slack, at some point, someone's going to own someone in their company and then go into their Slack and read their Slack history. And either they're going to mine it for passwords, or they're going to mine it for interesting stuff. And most orgs have no way of even knowing that this is going to happen, or it's happening. And so here you see a simple place where what you can do is go into your Slack and go into a conversation that happened 3 months ago, and where you said, hey, good morning, people. Change that line to, hey, folks, here's the password for the 2019 financials URL. And forget about it. And what's going to happen is when someone gets compromised, the attacker is going to go into their Slack and search for the word password. And he's going to see that and go score and click on it. And you've now got that first piece of thread that you can pull on that tells you something bad is happening in your org. And again, everything that we do, whether it's Canary or Canary tokens, is aimed at, can we do simple hacks that give you high fidelity information that badness is going on? And so the last thing I'll say is you asked about the API token. It's a really nice hack. And what's happening in the background? So one of our tokens is, you come to the token server and you say you want an AWS API token. And again, put in Paul's machine, put in Larry's machine as the memos. And so we'll give you one token for Paul and one for Larry, and you install those on your machine. And when an attacker owns you and sees that API key, he tries to use it, and you get a message saying, someone from this IP address using this browser just tried to access the token that you installed in Paul's home directory. Again, it's such a high quality IDS, and it costs you nothing, right? Like, if you go do it off our Canary token server right now, it's literally $0. And so you should go do this for every desktop in your org, because why not? Like, what's the false positive? that Paul accidentally uses the fake API key on his machine. And for technical background, what we're doing to make that work is we create an AWS account that we pay for, and in it we create AWS API keys and defang them so that even if someone uses it, there's nothing they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And then we turn on logging to the max so we can tell when someone uses that key. And then all we've got to do is essentially glue it all together and say like, okay, we gave this key to Paul. Paul wanted this reminder. When someone uses this key, based on the logs, we can see that it's Paul's key and Paul wanted that reminder. But again, it's so in the back, it's kind of this Rube Goldberg machine of multiple systems working behind at Amazon. But for you, it's 2 seconds. It's go to Canary tokens, put in an email address, say you want the API key, and now you've got it. And when someone uses it, you'll know. And again, there's lots of little things like that. To go philosophical again, I think that we underestimate the value of hacks for defense. Like I think for a long time, we've kind of conditioned ourselves to thinking that, like years ago, you'd read a college textbook and it'll tell you that the CIO's question is whether you buy technology or whether you build technology, and all the arguments for and against. And one of the things that we see in InfoSec is that attackers are used to building stuff on the fly and hacking solutions on the fly. And defenders, for the most part, still expect bought solutions to be slick and work. And when the floor under you is liquid or not stable, it seems like what you need is more hacks win. and currently the hacks are from attackers.
That was really prolific, Haroon. That was really that was
He
that
said
was
it was
deep.
gonna be philosophical.
Yeah, that was deep.
I try. You guys have the cigars. No, I genuinely think that we need to bring that back. And again, it sounds weird because I'm a vendor and I'm now telling you that you need more internal hacks, but you'll notice that stuff informs our design decision. So we're not trying to be everything in one. We're trying to be a Unix tool which says we do this one thing and we do it really well, and we'll play with your seam and we'll ingest stuff. So we become a good Unix utility, which is you fit us in and we play nicely with the other things in your tool. We're not trying to be all of your attention. We're trying to be a useful tool for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Very good.
Haroon, I don't know that you have ever played 5 Questions with Security Weekly.
I haven't, and I am afraid.
I was going to say, I think the last time Haroon was on, we didn't have 5 questions.
5 questions. So Haroon,
So that's been a while.
Are you ready to play 5 Questions with Security Weekly?
I guess I'm as ready as I'm going to be.
It's a really easy game. There's 5 questions. There is no right or wrong answer, and one of the questions is multiple choice with only 2 choices.
So you have a 50% shot
There you go.
of getting it either wrong or right. Wait, there's
This
no
is true.
Let's do it.
So, question 1, 3 words to describe yourself.
Curious, persistent, and annoying.
Question 2, if you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Holy shit.
That's a great answer.
Does the Pope bless it before you use it?
It's like a poop in the shape of a cross.
Come on, to
That's been hardened
But the
into a
Pope has to
point.
bless it for it to be
Yes.
holy.
Unless it's his own.
yes. So I've done a few years of knife fighting. So I guess I'd be stabbing people.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the question be? Well, what would the title be? Sorry.
That's odd.
In the popular game of Ask Grabby Grabby, do you prefer to go first or second? See, I told you it was easy. Multiple choice, only 2 options.
The answer is yes.
I like that.
Haroon, choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Or even Bollywood.
Richard Feynman and my mom.
Huh.
Great
Oh wait,
answers.
that's cheating, isn't it? You can't choose your own mother.
Guess you can.
Sure you can.
He
In
might,
Haroon's
he might
Yeah.
listen to this, and I think it's gonna suck if I replace her with someone, and I genuinely
It's smart.
can't think of anyone I'd like to
Smart.
replace her with.
Yeah,
Joff,
that's a
remember,
smart one.
there are no right or wrong answers.
And
there are
Joff-
just
That's
answers.
And Joff, Haroon's mom is in fact a celebrity. We never said
There you go.
who it had to be a celebrity to.
That's right.
You know, my mom's a
Exactly.
celebrity.
I
to
mean,
me.
we're even pretty loose with the rules. It doesn't really need to be a celebrity.
No, because everybody's a celebrity if you want them to
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
I'm
Fight
a
the
rock
power.
star in my
I'm
own
with you
mind.
guys.
Haroon, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about Canary tokens, some URLs for our audience? We've got securityweekly.com/canary, so you can go there. Then your
Or
direct
just hit
websites.
Canary.tools. So Canary.tools is our URL. So on the Twitters, we @Thinkst Canary. Between both of those, you'll find what you need. Or just ping me and tell me why I'm stupid, or tell me that I've got a nasal voice. We always keen to hear from people.
Well, I love your voice, and I loved this segment. It was awesome. It was nice speaking with you again, Haroon. With that, we will take a short break, come back with our next interview with Guru. Stay tuned.